Yesterday, we explored how restoration is emerging as one of India's most powerful pathways of climate action, resilient livelihoods, and inclusive rural development. We heard examples from across states, from watershed resilience to restoration enterprises, and saw how strongly interconnected our land, water, energy, and livelihood systems are. We explored different kinds of capital side enablers as well. Today, we continue building on that momentum. Our focus is on unlocking value chains, strengthening institutions, catalyzing philanthropy, and scaling collaborative community-centered leadership models. The restoration economy is not one sector. It's a systems opportunity touching agriculture, forestry, water management, markets, and rural development all at the same time. And the conversations today will help shape this enabling environment which is needed to take this movement to scale. A quick look at today morning's agenda. We'll begin with session 1 on restoration, positive business models and value chains, featuring practitioners and entrepreneurs creating markets for restoration-linked products and services. We'll then take a short tea break, after which we'll move to session 2, which brings together leading philanthropic institutions to discuss how catalytic funding can strengthen the ecosystem across Samaj, Sarkar, and Bazaar. Then we'll break for lunch, and after that, there's session 3, which focuses on collaborative leadership for landscape restoration, bringing together institutions that are enabling communities, local governance systems, and digital public goods. We close the day with a way forward session featuring the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, reflecting on what is needed to build resilient economies, ecosystems, and futures. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to a day of practical insights, strong ideas, and meaningful partnerships. We'll now begin with session 1. This session is about unlocking the potential of restoration positive business models and value chains to spur a land-based restoration economy. As we continue to scale India's restoration movement, one thing is very clear, that we cannot restore lands at the pace or scale required unless enterprises, value chains, and markets are all a part of the solution. When community livelihoods grow and ecosystems recover all at the same time, that's when restoration truly becomes sustainable. This session focuses on restoration positive models, ventures, building stronger farmer incomes, resilient supply chains, and nature-positive outcomes on the ground. We'll explore what's working, how technology and traceability are enabling trust in the markets, and what is needed to unlock larger demand for restoration-aligned products and services. We have an excellent panel with us today with very strong experience in restoration, value chains, and market systems, community enterprises, and innovation across landscapes. I would like to request the panel to please take their seats as I introduce them. The first on the panel is Dr. Rajendra Gautam Singh. Dr. Gautam is the Dean of the Institute of Livelihood Research and Training, or ILRT, promoted by the BASICS Social Enterprise Group to advance knowledge, innovation, and sustainable livelihood promotion for marginalized communities. He is also the Vice Chairman of the Value Chain Capacity Building Network under IFAD, supporting pro-poor value chain and market system development across the Asia-Pacific region. Next on the panel is Dr. Akriti Vanshu. Dr. Vanshu is a plant scientist with over 12 years' experience in the development of nature-based solutions and climate policies that bolster resilience within the agricultural domain. At IORA Ecological Solutions, Dr. Vanshu leads the agriculture and climate change team, where she designs innovative solutions for sustainable agriculture, advances policy reforms, conducts climate risk and vulnerability assessments, and drives implementation of climate mitigation and adaptation strategies. Welcome, Dr. Gautam and Dr. Vanshu. Next on the list is Satyendra Singh. Satyendra leads a development enterprise in Uttar Bastar district of Chhattisgarh by the name of Bastar Se Bazaar Tak, promoting non-timber forest produce-based livelihoods for local, small, and marginal tribal women farmers. Satyendra is a young leader who's passionate about empowering farmers and poor families by engaging them in the business of increasing the shelf life of non-timber forest products and converting them into value-added marketable products. Welcome, Satyendra ji. Next on the list is Rupali Datta Mohapatra. Rupali is a practitioner committed to restoring degraded landscapes and strengthening community-led natural resource and community development systems. She co-founded Konkavan Herbs to enable communities to revive land and earn incomes through medicinal plants. Rupali has over a decade of experience where she has worked across forest and tribal regions to build regenerative land-based livelihood models. And finally, our moderator for this session, Jasmeer Dhingra. Jasmeer is Director of Programs at IDH. Jasmeer manages agri-commodity sector programs in cotton, tea, spices, coffee, and textiles, as well as key production landscapes in Central and South India, co-developed with private sector partners and government. Jasmeer has been a part of the growth and scale and scope of several agri-commodity sectors, while contributing to IDH's global strategy development and the ESG framework as well. Thank you to all our speakers and to our moderator for being here with us, and to all our audience for joining us on this day too. With that, I will hand it over to Jasmeer to lead us into the discussion. Over to you, Jasmeer.
Great. Thank you, Divya, and good morning, everybody. It's really nice to see everyone in the room, and also to be in a room where we are already agreed that, restoration is not a, add-on to what we need to do, but it's actually very core to our development story in India. And our panel today, which is actually about restoration positive business models and value chains, it's just shorthand for asking the question that can we actually create businesses which contribute to incomes for the communities, but not because we are restoring, our landscapes and our natural environment, not despite it, right? So we are here to actually look at this panel, which has those stories and experiences and case studies to share, because we want to try and decode how can you make these business models work, right? What are the learnings, and maybe what are some of the struggles or the challenges as well that we need to learn and scale. But having said that, in India, we already see a lot of these examples. I was walking the room in the morning at all the examples at the back of the room, and we already see glimpses of this, right? We already see forest enterprises, forest-based products which are supported by, women in the communities. We see value chains that are already considering climate and nature impacts. We're also looking at livelihood programs which are actually questioning again that do we have a role to play, right, in shaping this landscape. But at the same time, a lot of these efforts are still on that edge of fragility, right? A lot of them are largely still supported heavily by, concession or grants, and yet we have examples that have moved past that. Right? They have already proven that there is a point in building these models. So we're going to look at a few of those, especially with the help of this panel, which represents different parts of that stake. So for our panel, we'll do three things, right? We'll start first in the field. We will, sort of explore in this panel what are the models which exist, which you all have been a part of, what has worked in them. We can start asking ourselves some questions. How have the markets, how has finance, incentives kahan se aa rahe hain, policy ka kya role hai? We will look at some of these questions also on this panel. So my role is actually to just keep us grounded, to learn from what has happened, and I think that's what I will count on myself to do. So let's start, right? Let's start with that. Let's go to the ground. And Dr. Rajendra, maybe I will start with you, right? So because you have already seen a very wide range of value chains who are nested in, climate smart agriculture across the country, I think my question to you is, what have you seen which has worked especially for those marginal communities, right? And what keeps them going even now? So first question to you.
Thank you, Jasmeer. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, WRI, TRI, and ICC for inviting for this event and sharing the very interesting initiative that we have collectively taken up in the Sindhi district. So basically, ILRT is in research and training and developing innovative livelihood models for, and all are community centric. So when WRI started this work of landscape restoration, and we joined with them. So landscape restoration was like a new words for us. We were familiar with watershed and watershed-based livelihood promotion. But what is landscape restoration? And when we keep this climate change in the center, then what should be our approach? How to connect landscape to livelihood? Okay, that was the fundamental question before ILRT. So to understand that, we have conducted a kind of livelihood profiling of the entire Sindh district so as to understand how the livelihood systems are there. What are the key livelihood activities? And what are the key tree species which are actually contributing in the lives and livelihood of the community in this district? So during this study, we found that there are large number of tree species which are contributing and people are very much connected with them. We make a long list. Out of that, we selected 5. And we conducted a kind of value chain analysis, like from pre-production to production to post-production and to consumption. So Mahua is a big tree, bamboo is a big tree, then jackfruit is a big tree. So you see this landscape. So all the big tree in agricultural land, out of 10, 8 are Mahua. You go near to the village, then the trees of jackfruits are like increasing. And bamboo is available on the made bunds. Okay. So now the question is, okay, let's do the value chain analysis, and we try to see where are our primary producer, are our primary collectors. So we found that the jackfruit largely for consumption purposes. And if some trader is coming to the doorstep, people get hardly 5 rupees per kg. Bamboo is again for local consumption, and if some trader from the Basod community they are coming, they are taking selected bamboo, but the market is not developed. In Mahua actually is a significant tree for women, and particularly tribal women. So during the lean period, they collect Mahua for the like 1.5 months, going to the forest, going to the agricultural land, going to the common land, collecting and selling in the weekly markets so that they can manage their livelihoods. So now we found that, okay, production is not a bottleneck today in livelihood. It's a price. So what should be our entry point? So we decided that we will be working on promoting and scaling up proper value chain and market systems. So the framework that we devised because it is a kind of action research for us. So our model should be, so the first pillar should be, we have to develop a community-centric business model. Okay. Second is accessing finance from mainstream market. And the third is market-oriented production. How we can introduce market-oriented production under these 3 tree-based value chains. So what we have done, we selected 30 villages in 3 contiguous blocks, and we have done counting of all the trees. Then we formed tree-based PG groups, like bamboo producer groups, Mahua producer groups, and then jackfruit producer groups. And then we divided the role. So the role of primary producer is what? Sustainable production and supplying to the PG. What is the role of PG? It's aggregation and connect with the market. Okay. So because community should be in the center. In between what we have done, we actually built already WRI has created a kind of atmosphere. So we had a very good relationship with the district government. So all our PGs were connected with the SRLM. So now they are able to get access, they are able to get some books and records, they are able to get some capital through village organization, through CLF and all that. So this is how we started the journey. And when you are working on the value chains, so you have to see the capabilities and capital base of the primary community. So where we can start? So the primary processing and connecting with the market. So during the value chain, what we have done? We have done temporal analysis, spatial analysis. So like Mahua, I give you one example. जब सीधी में 30 रुपया किलो महुआ बिकता है, उस समय मंडला में 65 रुपीस पर केजी बिकता है, रांची में 50 रुपया किलो बिकता है, ठीक है। सेकेंड, जो महुआ के कलेक्टर है एक्चुअली दे आर द कंज्यूमर्स, और आप जानती हैं महुआ लार्जली यूज होता है देसी लिकर बनाने के लिए, इट्स अ डिस्ट्रक्टिव यूज। लेकिन जब महुआ पे हमने रिसर्च किया तो हमने पाया इट हैज हाईली न्यूट्रिशियस, very rich in protein, very rich in fiber, very rich in minerals, particularly calcium, magnesium, then iron, and so many, phosphorus and everything. It's like contributes significantly in addressing the issue of malnutrition. Okay, so, but we analyzed that in 30 village, the production of mahua is around 4,000 to 5,000 quintal. So all cannot be used for making food products, because food products is a new thing. So what we can do? So three things we have started. First, and because climate is a concern, and how mahua is collected. So before the flowering season, all the people go and burn in the ground. So we estimated how much carbon emission is taking place, average per tree. It's 1.1 quintal per tree. So what we have done, we have like started introducing the use of net. So how this has contributed? See, the women is going to the field collecting mahua for 4-5 hours every day. And mahua, when it is touching the ground, so all the impurities and everything is entering. So now they are going, just collect the mahua in half an hour. So you reduce the opportunity cost of half day, the women drudgery, then you ensure the quality of the mahua. Then we discuss with the big traders in Jabalpur, in Mandla, in Raipur, in Ranchi. Can you offer 5 rupees extra per kg for this quality mahua? So they are easily agreed to offer 5 to 7 rupees. So this is a kind of 10 to 15% additional income enhancement for the people. So now the PG are aggregating, loading a truck, supplying to Mandla.
And they're getting the scale.
Then the second intervention, I tell you.
Right.
You see the mahua season ends in the before rainy season, and its consumption start after rainy season. And the price become just double.
Right.
So we told women, अगर मैं आपको 1,000 रुपया देता हूँ, तो ऐसा कौन सा आप बिजनेस करेंगी कि 6 महीने में उसको 2,000 कर सकती? सर हम महुआ इकट्ठा करेंगे. So we started promoting mahua banks. Here the PG actually collected money from CLF. They invested. It is not available in our project. So some of the PGs started storing.
Right.
And now they are selling after like in the festive season. So now you increase, like it's a 50 to 100% additional income only because of the storage.
Okay.
And the third is food processing. You can see there, and I tell you, the assembly session of Madhya Pradesh is starting with our mahua laddu this year.
That's wonderful. That's a great summary. I think we're very happy to hear from you because you have carried that breadth of knowledge which has helped us take a whole journey, right? So thank you very much for that. But some of the points which you mentioned, I think we need to retain, right? So how you build with the community-centric model, how you really had a lens on, if I have to get finance from the market, how do I gear myself for that, right? So mainstreaming was already in your mind. And then taking a production-centric approach, if you do want to link to the market, I think is a very valid takeaway. And we will probably hear more from the panels how they managed to do it. But Dr. Akriti, let me come to you next, right? I think where I want to continue from Dr. Rajendra is digging a little bit deeper into where you've seen nature-based solutions showing, the highest impact or the, sort of largest potential impact. And within that, have you seen certain value chains, sort of jump up with even more potential?
Thanks very much, Jasmine and WRI for inviting me this morning. Good morning to everyone. I think When we talk of nature-based solutions, I think it's something that people have been doing for a long time. We just now call it nature-based solutions, landscape-based approach, all of these different things. But the idea is to be on the ground and see what will be the most effective way. I think slightly the shift now that has happened is that all of us are thinking more long-term rather than short-term projects. We are all thinking more of the interconnected nature of different ecosystems that we work with rather than just saying, what can we do for agriculture or what can we do for forestry, but thinking of the whole system together and how do we make it more sustainable, how do we make it more resilient with the climate change and all of the nature degradation that's happening. So for us as well, that's how we look at things. To say that what nature-based solutions work, what don't work, I think becomes a very context-specific idea. What we might be doing in a Meghalaya and an Assam is not going to work in a Punjab. So for us as well, like Sir said, it's very important to go on the ground and to understand the context of that area, to understand, one, what the region needs in terms of its ecology, in terms of the degradation that it's facing, in terms of the pressure that it's seeing. But on top of that, also what do the communities want and what do they need? Because a lot of the times, what the community might want, I'll give you an example from Meghalaya and Assam, is that the community is very keen on growing areca nut. And if I'm sure people from here have also traveled there. If you go there, there are entire mountains in the region which have become areca nut. But we all know that with areca nut and its shallow roots, it's not good for that landscape. It's leading to a lot of landslides, areas which didn't see it before. There are arguments about its health benefits versus its impacts on health. So, but it's a great economic benefit for the communities there. So they do want to keep growing it. How do we balance that versus what is needed on the ground versus what the community wants? So very important to go in before you start any work, to work with the communities. Just like Sir said, have a very community-centric approach in what we are doing and then see what the region needs. In Meghalaya, we are doing an agroforestry-based project. Now, to talk to those communities about sustainable agriculture makes no sense because they've been doing that always. It's not a region that sees very high fertilizer use. But it is an area that sees jhum cultivation, and that has led to a lot of land degradation. So how do we address that, which is considered part of their livelihood? There are still areas, if you go in Meghalaya, they'll talk about that, these vegetables are grown on jhum land, they taste much better. So how do you address that side of things and talk to them about becoming more sustainable? So important to go there, understand what the region needs and see what works. These days, there are a lot of projects that are going on in ARR. Carbon finance is a big thing. But for us, rather than just going in and saying, let's grow trees because it's going to bring in money to the community or money to the organization as a project developer, we go in and see that, okay, yes, carbon gets us through the door, carbon finance is important, but what else? What next? Carbon is going to be such a small part of what the community is going to get out of it. The incentive for them is very, very small. But if we want to keep restoration going, like you said, working on the ground with restoration, not against it, or not looking at it as something else to do, but making it part of the development journey, I think that's very important. So to go there and say that initially, yes, carbon finance gets us through the door, it gives us resources to be on the ground, but what else can we bring on it? How do we look at value chain integration in that? How do we connect our communities to a better market, just like Sir is doing? How do we then bring in other sources of financing as well, whether it's grant-based, whether it's concessional finance, whether it's looking at a loan process as well. Something we've done in Meghalaya is to develop a carbon-backed loan for our project over there. It came with multiple challenges of RBI and interest rates and looking at moratoriums, and we can talk about it more. But looking at sort of a blended finance model that works on the ground to be able to do this at scale is very, very important. So starting from a community-centric approach, understanding what is needed there, and then layering different aspects on top of that is what is important for us.
Great. Thank you, Akriti. I think what I'm taking away from you is also when you enter a region, you not only start with what it is that they need, but then looking for some signals as to what can make it stick. So it may need a different model of development is what I'm hearing, and a different convergence of resources of finance, or you can't see it in a very typical way, or a very brush stroke, sort of this is the steps that you follow?
No, I mean, broadly, yes, you can make brush strokes. We were talking to some investors a few days ago, and they said, oh, do you have a manual of what you are doing and how you're going to replicate it somewhere else? And we started thinking about it, and we said, yes, maybe the broad strokes can be done, but within that, there is so much nuance that you need to remember. Like in Meghalaya, youth engagement for us is very important, but it's also very easy. The younger generation there is very happy to live in the state. Even our own team studied outside of Meghalaya, but they all came back. So for them, being within their communities, in their state is very important. They all want to remain connected to agriculture. They want to continue that. Whereas if you go to anywhere in central India, that is such a huge challenge. So yes, we can have a manual, but the way we achieve something is going to be very different.
Great. Thank you for that. And maybe it's a good segue, Satyendra ji, to come to you. Because I think आप जो बस्तर से एक connection लेकर आए हो, bringing forest-based, NTFPs through women-led enterprises. I think आपके लिए I have the question that where do you see सबसे ज़्यादा scale, right? From all the products that you bring, आपको scalability कहाँ पे दिखती है? And maybe connected to that, क्यों दिखती है?
धन्यवाद जसमीर जी। आप सबको नमस्ते, जय जोहार और भगवान बिरसा मुंडा जी की 150वीं जन्म शताब्दी वर्ष की आप सबको गाढ़ा गाढ़ा बधाई, क्योंकि अपने पूर्वजों को याद करने का मौका ऐसे प्लेटफॉर्म में मिलता है। और WRI, TRIF, इंडिया क्लाइमेट कोलैबोरेटिव, आप सबका धन्यवाद। तो बहुत अच्छा सवाल है जसमीर जी। तो थोड़ा मिक्स रहेगा, हिंदी इंग्लिश के साथ में कुछ और थोड़ा गांव का भाषा भी आ सकता है, तो उसके लिए थोड़ा क्षमा याचना है। तो स्केल हमारे लिए क्या है? जनरली होता है ना, आप सिटी में देखते हैं, कहने का मतलब है कोई मोबाइल की दुकान है तो बहुत सारी फ्रेंचाइजी आएगी, कहने का मतलब है कोई कैफ़े की दुकान है तो बहुत सारी फ्रेंचाइजी आएगी, कैनॉट प्लेस में, पता नहीं इंदिरा नगर, देवेंद्र नगर, राजेंद्र नगर में। पर हमारे लिए स्केल क्या है कि हम अंदर अंदर के गाँव में जाते हैं, साहावाड़ा हो गया, डोमा हर्रा हो गया, यानी हम लोग गांव के अंदर अंदर में जाके जो फार्मर मेन स्ट्रीम में कनेक्ट नहीं है उन तक हम हमारा टच बढ़ाते, ये हमारे लिए पहले नंबर की स्केलेबिलिटी है। और ओवरऑल नॉन टिम्बर फॉरेस्ट प्रोड्यूस के मॉडल में जो सप्लाई चेन होनी चाहिए, रोबोस्ट सप्लाई चेन, वो गांव से जंगल से हो के आती है। तो हमारा सबसे पहले तो वो है। और 4-4.5 साल पुराना हमारा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, पहला। दूसरा ये है कि स्केल हमारे साथ साथ ये भी है कि नंबर ऑफ फार्मर्स कैसे ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा ऑनबोर्ड हो, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा विलेज लेवल कलेक्शन सेंटर्स कैसे बढ़े, उसके साथ में क्लस्टर लेवल जो फेडरेशन होता है या जो क्लस्टर लेवल पे जो काम होता है, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा क्लस्टर तक हम कैसे पहुँचे या क्लस्टर का हम लोग निर्माण कैसे करें। तो एक जगह से हमने चालू किया, चारामा से नरहरपुर गए, कांकेर आए, मोहला, मानपुर, चौकी गए, इस बार दंतेवाड़ा गए और अभी 1-1.5 महीने बाद में हम सुकमा जा रहे हैं। तो ये हमारा स्केलेबल का पहला चीज़ है। दूसरा सबसे बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण ये है कि हमारी जो टीम है, टीम में कैसे लोग आ रहे हैं, वो टीम कैसे हमारी स्ट्रेंथन हो रही है, टीम कैसे मैसेजिंग कम्युनिकेशन पास कर रही है ग्रास रूट लेवल पे, ये दूसरा हमारे लिए, हम इस चीज़ को हम स्केल में मानते हैं। और जो हमारा मार्केट है, अनटिल एंड अनलेस, क्योंकि लक्ष्मी जी तो वहीं से आना है, अगर वो चीज़ें वहाँ पे अगर वो बिकी नहीं, क्योंकि ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल फॉर्म बहुत मैटर करता है। हाइब्रिड है कि फॉर प्रॉफिट है कि नॉट फॉर प्रॉफिट है कि एसएचजी है कि कोऑपरेटिव है कि एलएलपी है कि ओपीसी है कि लिमिटेड है, पता नहीं, एन नंबर ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल फॉर्म होता है। तो फॉर प्रॉफिट स्पेशली प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी के लिए बहुत सारी चीज़ें मैटर करती है। ये नहीं कि इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर हो गया, प्रॉफिट लॉस उतना मैटर नहीं करता, जैसे स्पेशली नॉट फॉर प्रॉफिट सेक्टर में होता है। तो हमको सारी चीज़ को बैलेंस और मैनेज करके हमको चलना पड़ता है। और क्या होता है कि वो कहीं ना कहीं अनटिल एंड अनलेस वो कॉस्ट से एसोसिएट होता है, फिर आपका मार्केट का कंपटीशन होता है। तो जब तक वो चीज़ें मार्केट में बिकी नहीं, लक्ष्मी जी आई नहीं, तब तक वो मॉडल सस्टेनेबल नहीं है। तो हमारा ओवरऑल जो है पूरा B2B है, कहने का मतलब है, समझिए कि एक बायर है, उसको 100 टन्स का रिक्वायरमेंट है, बट अगर आपका ग्रास रूट में कैपेसिटी अगर 100 टन्स का नहीं है उसको प्रोक्योर करके देने के लिए, तो उसमें कोई मीनिंग नहीं है ना। देश में 11 करोड़ करीब अभी तो 2011 का सेंसस है कि ट्राइबल पॉपुलेशन है, और हम आप कितना 2000, 2500, 3000, 3500, 4000, 5000 फार्मर्स के साथ में हम लोग काम करते हैं। ये हार्नेसिंग रियलिटी है। तो जब तक अपन अपनी रिच, अपना स्केल उन तक नहीं पहुंचाएंगे, तब तक इधर में है तो बड़ा आप प्ले नहीं कर पाएंगे। तो अभी जो हमारा फर्स्ट फेज है वो पहले ग्रास रूट में कम्युनिटी के साथ में रैपो बिल्ड करके, ट्रस्ट गेन करके, रोबो सप्लाई चेन, क्योंकि हम क्या है, फर्स्ट जनरेशन एंटरप्रेन्योर, 4 साल 5 साल, और आप दूसरे अगर देखेंगे कोचिया को, ट्रेडर को, तो जनरेशन ऑफ जनरेशन चल रही है, 25 साल, 40 साल, 60 साल, 70 साल से उनका चल रहा है। और उनकी खोपड़ी और ज़्यादा तेज है, कहने का मतलब है हमारे लोगों से भी, क्योंकि उनका लीगेसी है, उनके पास में पूरा वो ढांचा बना हुआ है, चाहे वो कोचिया का हो, चाहे मिडल मैन का हो, चाहे एक्स पर्सन का हो, चाहे वाई पर्सन का हो। और हम क्या है, कुछ भी नहीं है, ऊँट के मुंह में जीरा वाली कहानी है। हाँ, बट बीइंग अ प्रोफेशनल, जो हमको समझदारी है, कहने का मतलब है जो हम पढ़े हैं, आप लोगों से मिल रहे हैं, बातचीत कर रहे, तो वो वाले पुराने ढसरे में नहीं, कि हाँ कुछ तो भी प्रोफेशनलिज्म के साथ में, कुछ तो भी लोगों को अपना बना के, कुछ तो भी उनको प्रॉफिट में शेयरिंग करके, कुछ तो भी उनको एडवाइजरी करके, जो वो नहीं करते। ये हमारे लिए स्केल है।
मेरे पास आपके लिए फॉलो अप क्वेश्चन है कि ये सब करते करते, अभी आप फिलहाल अब बोल रहे हो कि आप भी यंग हो, वो तो पुश्तों से करते आ रहे हैं, बट शायद आप अपने एग्जाम्पल या अपने एक्सपीरियंस से एक वो सिचुएशन कोई शेयर कर सकते हैं जहाँ पे आपने कोई लेसन सीखा हो, कोई मिस्टेक बनी हो जो अब आप करेक्ट कर पा रहे हैं, क्योंकि आई थिंक सीख भी बहुत मिलती है। हमेशा सब कुछ ठीक नहीं जाता डे 1 से, तो कोई कुछ ऐसा शेयर करो जहाँ पे आपको कोर्स करेक्शन करना पड़ा।
एग्जैक्टली, बिल्कुल। गलतियाँ तो होती है, हमारे से बहुत सारी गलतियाँ हुई है, और उसका कोई अंत नहीं है गलतियाँ का, और वो फ्यूचर में भी होगी। हाँ, ये अलग बात है कि आज ज़्यादा होगी, कल कम होगी, उसके बाद कम करते करते होगी। तो हमारे से गलतियाँ ये होती है कि बी स्कूल में बताया जाता है कि ट्रस्ट बेस्ड जो होता है, कहने का मतलब है उस पे होना चाहिए। जैसे होता है ना, वर्ड, एक्सेल, पावर पॉइंट चल जाता है, पर सरकारी महफिल में वो नहीं चलता है। नोट सीट चलती है, सील चलता है, साइन चलता है। तो हमारे से भी ट्रस्ट बेस्ड जो होता है मार्केट में, कहने का मतलब है उसमें हम अटक गए थे, वो बहुत बड़ी चीज़ के लिए। और जब हम हमारी टीम से, हमारी कोर टीम से, हमारी फार्मर की टीम से जब हमने ये डिस्कस किया, तो उनका एक ही सजेशन आया, बड़ा अच्छा हुआ सत्तू कि ये झटका पहले लग गया। अगर बाय डिफ़ॉल्ट ये झटका बीच मझधार में या एक लेवल पे जाने के बाद लगता, तो हम अपने आप को माफ़ नहीं कर पाते। तो बेटर है, आपको अगर झटका पहले लगता है तो आप बहुत जल्दी पटरी पे आ जाते हैं। तो वो झटका क्या था, ट्रस्ट की बात अगर आई, तो कहने का मतलब होता है ना कि ठीक है, आपने चीज़ें दे दी, आपने उसका कुछ किया नहीं, थोड़ा जो होता है प्रोसेस, फॉर्मेलिटीज़, और अगला वाला काफ़ी शार्प होते हैं। मैंने पहले ही बताया कि 30 साल, 40 साल, 50 साल का उनको एक्सपीरियंस होता है खेलने का मार्केट में, और हमको उतना एक्सपीरियंस नहीं था। बट ठीक है, संभल गए, आ गए, और भगवत कृपा से बहुत अच्छा कर रहे हैं, और आने वाले समय में भी बहुत अच्छा करेंगे। एक और चीज़ बड़ा अच्छा है हमारे फार्मर्स के साथ में कि वो हमें जो लेसन्स सिखाते हैं या बताते हैं, वो थ्रू स्टोरी बताते हैं। चाहे वो रामायणा की हो, चाहे भगवत गीता की हो, चाहे दुर्गा सप्तशती की हो, ये स्टोरी के फॉर्म जो पहले हो चुका है ऑलरेडी। चाहे वो कुरुक्षेत्र का रन हो या और सारी चीज़ें हो, क्योंकि हम कुछ नया नहीं होता है ना, सारा तो लिखा हुआ है, उसी से बुक वगैरह बहुत सारी चीज़ें होती है। तो वो लेसन से मैं एज अ पर्सन बहुत ज़्यादा सीखता हूँ। और हम लोग का ऐसा जो मीटिंग होता है, वो खाना खाते खाते ही हम लोगों का हो जाता है, आधा घंटा पौना घंटा में ही, कहने का मतलब है। ऐसा बहुत होता नहीं कि बहुत क्लोज डोर है, सारा मेजॉरिटी चीज़ें ओपन है। तो जितनी चीज़ें ओपन रहती है, उतना ज़्यादा एज अ पर्सन मुझे वो सपोर्ट मिलता है।
थैंक यू। क्योंकि आपने जो हमें अभी बताया है, आई थिंक थ्रू द पैनल व्हाट वी हैव हर्ड अ लॉट इज मॉडल के बारे में, हाउ डू यू डिज़ाइन, हाउ डू यू कीप कम्युनिटी नीड्स एट द सेंटर। थोड़े बहुत लेसन्स भी सीखने को मिल गए हैं थ्रू योर रिफ्लेक्शन। बट रूपाली, लेट मी कम टू यू, बिकॉज नाउ लेट्स टॉक थोड़ा अबाउट देन इनोवेशंस, राइट? That as Konkuan Hubs, you are working a lot on sustainable, on traceable, sort of supply chains for medicinal herbs and also for superfoods. Can you share a little bit more about what are the innovative things that you're doing to get your business model going?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Harit Bharat team, for inviting. I'm really happy to be here. So coming to the innovation, before innovation, I would say that we have learned few lessons, like you asked. And what we learned is we need to see this whole restoration-based enterprises from three perspectives. One is the perspective from our perspective as an enterprise perspective. We see it as a ecological activity sometimes, or a long-term gain perspective, that the long-term ecological benefit will come, what plantation has to be done. So we are sometimes working with that perspective. Earlier, that was the learning. But then there is another perspective which is from the farmer's perspective. Farmer cannot wait, and farmer cannot, survive on the promises of long-term ecological benefit. They need immediate results, immediate reliable incomes, regular incomes. So that has to be seriously looked upon. And then what we also learned is there is the bigger perspective from the market. Now, how the market runs, what the market expects, what are the standards, what are the quality they are expecting, what are the volumes they are expecting. Because anyway, as an enterprise, everyone wants to, scale. And when we are scaling, we understand that the volume of the produce is also increasing. So catering to the market that much and understanding the buyer's need, that buyer, what is the buyer expecting from that particular geography? What is the volume expectation? So that has to be matched, and that is a hardcore lesson we learned. And then comes to the innovation. So we then intervene in few of the areas, and first and foremost is the selection of the species and selection of the crops. So those crops which already have a strong market demand, a regular market demand, and market demand along with the volume demand has to be there, because then the scale can happen. And it should excite the species or the crops should excite the farmers. I mean, we have, initially we introduced a few crops thinking that it can give like 5x or 6x income to the farmers. But what we also realized at on-field, it's not working, because it is the time management thing which has to be done by the farmers. I mean, it has to be planted on certain time, the harvesting should happen on a particular interval, the crop has to be, picked and then processed. And the farmer didn't find it exciting enough, and it doesn't matter sometimes what is the return, but it matters that what are the labor component to it, what is the time component to it, what are the festivals during that particular season. And so combining all of this, one thing is the selection of the species. The second thing which we focused is on community-led production systems in place. So, when I started, I had the same understanding that farmer thoda bhi karega to chalega. Then we realized we need to see farmers as producers and manufacturers. And that is very important. I mean, we need to set few production benchmark for them also. Because it's a interlinked system. We need to cater to a buyer, and farmers should understand this. So that is the core of our engagement is we have decentralized production systems on ground, processing machines are there with the FPOs and the map clusters. And then the traceability, the trust has to be built, because just by saying that this produce is from this particular area, this is grown by tribal farmers, that won't work. The traceability matters, the quality of the produce matters, and there comes the big role of certification, and that can be discussed further, yeah. That much, thank you.
And can I ask you a follow-up, Rupali? So in your experience now, working through all these challenges, both on the production side, the opportunity, talking to farmers, setting benchmarks, Have you also seen any specific changes in the leadership role played by women and women farmers sort of in this ecosystem, especially around how land and resources in general are managed? So have you seen some changes there? Have you been able to drive some changes there? And if not, then what have been those hurdles? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. In fact, when we started, our focus was women farmers only. So, when it comes to farmers, women farmers, I think there are three areas where we are focusing. One is the ownership of the decision. What is to be grown in my land, whether it is my land or not, that is a question, because women don't consider themselves as the landowners rather than the, workers on their own field. So if I'm, as a women farmer, I'm selecting what has to be grown. So what we did is we started with small patches. So we agreed upon that if you're ready to do it in 10 decimal of land, then it's okay. But the decision has to be taken by you. And initially we gave seeds free of cost to them so that, it excites them. And then when the cycle completes, when they really get the income and they earn well, then the family, start trusting them. And that has to be done. I mean, there is a bigger role when it comes to women. They should be first in the market. The visibility should be there in the market. And then the understanding and the technical know-how of any crop. So the traditional crop has always been with the men farmers, I would say, that how the cultivation has to happen, what is the land size, what is the measurement of the land. It was earlier with the men. So in our interventions, we focused on how women take it forward, starting from the decision of cultivation to getting the income in their accounts.
Great, thank you for those reflections, Rupali. And then I think across the panel, we have certainly heard now and can believe that viable models do exist, right? There may be challenges, we are scaling them, we are also learning, right, from different things, but they do exist. And a lot of these exist because they are vested in the particular model or the landscape of that region. They are certainly being led a lot by what the community needs and where the capabilities are, what we need to develop. So now, having heard all this, maybe let's move into our next segment where we hear some quick reflections from everybody, more on then where do markets and finance and technology need to actually shift to scale some of these models. So right now, we've been talking more about what is happening and what is working. But maybe we do a quick round of reflections there. And Rajendra ji, let me start with you again, right? So it's really saying that to do what we have to do, what kind of, is it guarantees, is it different kind of procurement, terms that you need? What is it that you need from markets and incentives?
Thank you. So when you are working with value chain, it means you are definitely going to cater some market. And every market has their own terms and conditions, okay, that you have to first understand. So I take example of bamboo. So in bamboo, what is actually easy for the farmer to access the easy market? So it's a paper mill. So we approach the paper mill, okay, we have lot of bamboos, we want to supply you. They have said that, okay, we are ready to give you 5.5 rupees per kg at the factory gate. So we structure the entire value chain, supply chain, okay? And now the PG is aggregating and supplying. The PG is the vendor with the industry and money is coming to the PG, then they are distributing. Then what is the second market system? It's the agriculture sector because now we are talking about advanced farming. So bamboo is required for staking. So, but before that, like I tell you, when we were doing this study, we found that people in the CD before our intervention were getting 1.2 rupees per kg for the bamboo in the traditional market. As we connected them with the industry, it jumped to 1.7 rupees. So 50% appreciation is there because of this first intervention. Then the second is agriculture sector. Let's supply to the agriculture sector. Here we supplied like 25,000 bamboo poles. In industry we supply 8 to 10 truckloads. Okay, then we stop because the supply chain is established now. Let's explore second market system. So it's a agriculture sector. Here the 1.7 is jumped to 2 rupees. Okay, so this is how we are actually setting it different. So now again there is an order for next 25,000 poles to the PGs. The third is construction sector. Okay, so we approach a group in Bhopal which is actually processing and supply to the construction sectors. They are saying that, sir, in MP, where is bamboo? We are taking from Assam. And every month, only one group, they need 5 truckload. Getting from 2,000 kilometer, if you are supplying from Siddhi, easily this 2 rupees will become 4 rupees per kg. So this is the second market system that we are linking with. The third is like art and craft sector. Fourth one is we are, because see, you are supplying poles, but lot of waste is there. The branches, the leaves. So now, seeing the result of these interventions, now these biochar industries are ready to set up shop in Siddhi districts. So we are having discussion with them. But every supply chain, you have to prepare the community. For that. They need capabilities. We have to prepare handy tools where the community can do analysis and take appropriate decision. And second, capital. So how the capital is coming from? So first is our Harit Bharat Fund, a little fund is given from. Then the second is government projects. So like in Mahua, we receive 5 lakh rupees for the machinery from Harit Bharat Fund. Then the building and entire setup is developed by district government. Okay, some money was contributed by ILRT for the skill development. So with this investment, this enterprise has developed. But all the working capital is coming from women. So now the good thing is that sometimes we criticize why this Ladli Behna Yojana, but because of Ladli Behna Yojana, every woman is getting 1,500 per month. Now they are investing this 1,500 rupees plus the fund that is coming from SHG loan for building their business. So entire this working capital is coming through SHG, through bank loan, through self-investment by the women. So this is how we are actually building. Second, one more thing, the political leadership. So actually today the MLA, the MP, entire district government is with this project. So our women, like in the first year, we supplied only 200 net, and that is from forest department. Because we didn't have provision under our project, but we have to collect the mahua through the net. So forest department actually facilitated it. But women realized the impact of the net. So many of the women started using their own old sari to making the net. So when we have done the inauguration function, women have started raising the question before the MLA, sir, हमने साड़ी की net बनाई. And that was like hurting him. So he told that this year, like 4,000 nets will be given from MLA fund. So basically, the learning is, you see the district government, you see the political leadership, you see the community and CBOs. What they see from us? They see our intent.
Yeah.
Are we really coming with the noble and good intent to them? Second, they see our capability. Can we demonstrate results? If that is so, then the enabling conditions at the local level will automatically start. This is our learning.
Thank you. That was very well put. And I think maybe that is why it's a great segue, Akriti, to what I would like to ask you. Because what we've heard from Dr. Rajendra right now is more also about how we have mobilized bottom up, right? So with self-investment, how you have moved both political economy, how you have really sort of unlocked through convergence. I think what the question I'd love for you to maybe reflect on or help us reflect on is, where do you see, potentially different kinds of tools or frameworks that we can actually maybe leverage or learn from? If you were to think of an example like this, that would help us unlock financing, right, into more, restoration positive models like these, because clearly there's impact on community. We are considering the landscape, but now beyond public convergence and self-investment, we want to attract more finance. So what can we do? What tools can we, bring in that will help us replicate and scale? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, financing is, of course, one of the, fortunately or unfortunately, one of the most important levers for achieving scale on ground. As I had said earlier as well, carbon finance is a very good starting point, and that is something that we are exploring across our landscapes, whether it's looking at agroforestry and ARR projects or looking on the agriculture ALM sides. We are developing our projects to begin with as carbon finance. That is something that gives us resources to be on the ground. It's a very early incentive for communities to get involved. When you're working on an agroforestry project, any returns the community is going to get from those trees is going to come in the medium and long term. In the short term, what is their incentive? What is their reason for keeping those trees, maintaining those trees? We can only be there for so much. End of the day, it's the farmer who has to manage that plot. And why should they work with us? Why should they incorporate a system which will have some yield penalty for them? Agroforestry will impact whatever crops they are growing. It will see some impact. So why should they do this? So carbon finance helps bridge that little bit of a gap. It gives them that incentive in the beginning to say that yes, I can do this. But what beyond that? It'll possibly be 10% of the total income, carbon finance. How do we add on top of it? Value chains is a great example, and something we're doing in Meghalaya as well, working with different CLFs, identifying clusters, that what is being grown where, how do we bring in processors, how do we bring in buyers for these high-value products. Meghalaya has some great products, everybody knows Lakadong turmeric, the pineapple that comes from Meghalaya. But at present, what the farmer is getting for a Lakadong turmeric versus what we are buying in Delhi, there is a huge delta. So how can we bring that money over to the farmers and help raise their income a little bit more with their value chain financing? So we have about 15,000 farmers we're working with right now in Meghalaya with hopes of scaling up. So when we have this captive audience of 15,000 people, what else can we do with them? So not just the agroforestry produce as the project we're doing with them, but also what are the agri crops they're growing? What is the value chain connect in that? How do we work with CLFs to then on top of that not just do the value chain, but also bring in loans from different, whether it's through the government, whether it's through some private enterprise who's willing to invest in this area, but possibly as a loan for the SHGs, for the CLFs to take, and how do we help them manage that? How can we be part of that system to facilitate that sort of investment in the region? Then on top of that, of course, grants have always been there. Grants have always helped us to be on the ground. But again, talking about the loan that I had mentioned, so we did this very small as a pilot, a climate-based, carbon-based loan for the work in Meghalaya, which had a lot of challenges. There are a lot of RBI rules of FDI which don't allow foreign investments to come in for native agroforestry plantations. If you want to do palm oil, if you want to do coffee, that's great, you can get money, but for agroforestry, you can't. So we had to go through NBFC, we had to look at different models, but also thinking of that what is the conversation we need to have on the policy side to facilitate this sort of an instrument which allows you to do agroforestry. So that is one side of things as well. So just layering different types of finance on top of each other, which helps us to achieve scale and which helps to improve the farmer's income is quite important.
Great, thank you for that. So then maybe I will come to, in fact, both of you because question is similar, right? So Satyendra ji, maybe you can reflect, आप थोड़ा reflect कर सकते हो more from which will help us learn कि आपने already बोला था market में demand तो generate करना ही है for scale, right? I think the question I want to go उसमें थोड़ा deeper, to say कि generate करने के लिए आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा, right? What is that? And Rupali, actually the question is similar for you because I would like to understand कि वही demand generate करने के लिए how do you see the role of telling your story in a more impactful way? So this same question I would love to give both of you अपने reflections के लिए, and then of course we would also love to hear from the audience. Maybe they'll have questions for the panel. But आप पहले.
बिल्कुल. तो हमें याद आ रहा है, हमारे फार्मर बोलते हैं सबको सब नहीं मिलता. तो बीइंग अ पर्सन, मुझे आप बोलेंगे जंगल में 1000 फार्मर्स को इकट्ठा करके ये चीज़ बतानी है, आई कैन डू दैट इन 10 मिनट्स. मुझे बोला जाएगा कि ये पकड़ो 100 टन और मार्केट में इसको बायर से मीटिंग करके इसको बातचीत करो, निगोशिएट करो और करो, तो शायद मैं पीछे आ जाऊं, क्योंकि उसके लिए फिर दूसरा टाइप का माहौल और वो सारी करनी पड़ती है. तो बाज़ार के लिए जो बात है, तो उसमें मेन चीज़ है कि आप अपने ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल फॉर्म या बिजनेस मॉडल या अपना जो बायर है, जैसे हम गांव में बोलते हैं ना कि टारगेट ऑडियंस, एसएचजी, लैंडलेस फार्मर, फिजिकली डिसेबल्ड लोग, वैसे मार्केट के भी टारगेट है. और कुछ लोग हैं मार्केट में भी अच्छे, इसलिए चल रहा है बिजनेस और दुनिया भी चल रही है, ये हार्नेसिंग रियलिटी है. तो उस तक कैसे पहुंचेंगे? तो ये है कि हमारे बिजनेस मॉडल में ये है कि इंडस्ट्रीज़ के लिए, इंडस्ट्रीज़ के स्टैंडर्ड के हिसाब से B2B में प्रोडक्ट तैयार करना, जिसके कारण हमारा मार्केटिंग का कॉस्ट बहुत नहीं के बराबर है. ये एक चीज़ हुआ. दूसरा, जैसे लिंक कर देता हूँ स्टोरी वाली चीज़, तो B2B में इंडस्ट्रीज़ को जो बैठे हैं पिछले 50 साल से, मेरे एक्सपीरियंस, ये मेरा ओपिनियन है, उनको स्टोरी से फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. B2C है या आप जैसे महानुभाव, मतलब जिनको समझ है कि ये प्रोडक्ट कहाँ से आ रहा है, कौन तैयार कर रहा है, कैसे तैयार हो रहा है, मेरा पैसा जो मैं दे रहा हूँ इसको खरीदने के लिए वो किसके पास जा रहा है. तो ये मैटर करता है बिजनेस मॉडल के, मार्केटिंग के, आपके सेल्स मार्केटिंग के फनल्स या उसमें. पर जिस क्राइटेरिया में हम लोग करते हैं वहाँ पे हो सकता है हमारे पोर्टफोलियो में अभी 26-27 बायर है, तो 2-3-4 को वो मैटर करता है. तो जहाँ से ज़्यादा लक्ष्मी जी आती है, जो बायर से ज़्यादा आता है, तो हम उनको ज़्यादा ध्यान देते हैं. कहने का मतलब ये भी सच्चाई है. तो रही बात ये कि मार्केट की, तो एक बार ये है कि कॉस्ट है, आपका प्राइस है, क्वालिटी है, स्वभाव है, और एक लेवल पे ब्रांड भी है. कहने का मतलब है हाँ ठीक है चल जाएगा, तो वो एक हमारे लिए एक बेस्ट पार्ट है. और दूसरा सबसे बड़ा अच्छा बात ये है हम लोगों का कि ये नहीं कि आज दे दिए और कल नहीं मिलेगा, साल भर रखेंगे. उस टाइप का प्रोसेस, इनोवेशन और वो सारा करके रखा है. इवन तो छोटा भी अगर चीज़ लगेगा आपको, 40 kg की बैग भी लगेगी तो वो भी हम देंगे. कहने का मतलब है. और अगर कभी 100 टन लगा, 120 टन लगा, तो वो भी हम दे देंगे. क्योंकि जो 40 किलो की बोरी वाला आज खरीदेगा, हो सकता है 4 साल बाद में वो 40 kg की जगह में 4000 kg खरीदेगा. तो हमको उस टाइम में मार्केटिंग के ऊपर में पैसा कम खर्चा करना पड़ेगा. तो ये सारे छोटे छोटे टूल्स है या नुस्खे हैं जो हम करते हैं. और बगैर टेबल पे बैठे हम बात नहीं करते या डील नहीं करते. वर्चुअल बहुत कम बिलीव करते हैं, क्योंकि जितना ये वर्चुअल चीज़ें आगे जाती, पर्सन भी उतना बहुत दिमाग से तेज होते जाता है. तो बातचीत करना है, जाना है, देखना है, समझना है, फिर हम वो करते हैं.
I think I completely agree with what Satyendra is sharing. Initial level storytelling for customer acquisition is one thing, but customer won't sustain on the stories. I mean, they really want good products, quality products. And for quality products, we need to check whether, in our case especially, whether any pesticide content is there. It should match the EU standards. Then the certification should be in place. Then the volume or regularity of the supply should match. And that is what is interesting or interests the buyers or the market. story, like he said, you know, to 1-2% it attracts, or initially it may attracts, but if we can cater to their needs or their pain points, that is the key for a long-term, buyer-seller relationship. Yeah.
And maybe the story we want to tell is one of both, right? That both are possible. You want to tell the story of your impact, but you also want to break the norm, saying that we only need the story, right? You can also give the product, you can also get the quality, and you can think of market and growth. I think आपने इतना articulately वही बोला है कि हमें match करना पड़ेगा. But this is a really good thought to, sort of pause here with. We have a little time, so
Yeah, maybe I
we
can add upon
Yeah,
one
please,
more
go
point
ahead.
is in this restoration, intervention where what we all are doing, every stakeholder needs to be rewarded. And it should start from the buyer also. I mean, if they're buying from this particular place or these communities, everyone should be incentivized. I mean, the rewards can be different for the different persons, but as an enterprise, maybe through funding sources or through any other sources, it should be rewarding. For the farmer, it should be rewarding differently. There has to be some add-upon, and for the buyers also. I mean, there can be some restoration certification process should happen where the buyer is ready to pay more and they should also get something extra. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rupali. Maybe we can open up for, we have about 5 minutes, so maybe not a lot of questions. Divya, maybe 2 or 3 maybe we can take. And if I can request you to keep your questions crisper and also direct them to whoever you would like to ask, that's a good start. And then, yes, please. Is there a mic for Catherine? Yeah, I think that gentleman first, and then can't see the hand. You can help me.
मेरा प्रश्न जो है वो डॉक्टर राजेंद्र जी से है. वैसे सत्येंद्र जी इसमें अपना सबमिशन दे सकते हैं. एक्चुअली सर आपने महुआ का जो बात किया, तो जहाँ तक मैं जानता हूँ बेसिकली झारखंड, छत्तीसगढ़, मध्य प्रदेश, सम पार्ट्स ऑफ उत्तर प्रदेश, उड़ीसा एंड एडजॉइनिंग सम पार्ट्स ऑफ महाराष्ट्र, आंध्र प्रदेश एडजॉइनिंग टू विशाखापट्टनम, ये स्पेसीज जो है वो उसका एक तरह से नेचुरल स्पेसीज है फॉरेस्ट का. हाल के दिनों में एक्चुअली मैं झारखंड से बिलोंग्स करता हूँ, नियर रांची. ये जो पेड़ है वो बहुत पुराने होते जा रहे हैं और नए पेड़ जो हैं वो पनप नहीं रहे. तो आप तो इस पर काम किए हैं काफ़ी, मैं काम तो नहीं किया हूँ लेकिन मैं फिजिकली देखता हूँ काफ़ी नज़दीकी से चीज़ों को कि ये ग्रो करने में बहुत समय लगता है, मैच्योर होने में बहुत समय लगता है. इसके जो ये आएंगे, फूल आएंगे, उस पर काफ़ी समय लगता है. इस पर क्या काम किया जा रहा है, एक प्रश्न ये है, क्योंकि वो ग्रो होता नहीं है. और मुझे कम से कम 100 गाँव में देखा हूँ, एवरेज 10 से 12 पेड़ होते थे जो जंगल से सटे हुए गाँव हैं. आज उन गाँवों में एक भी पेड़ नहीं है. जो पुराने पेड़ हैं वो नष्ट हो गए हैं या गिर गए हैं, पुराने हो गए हैं. दूसरा, आपने उसका जो फ्लावर साइड का बात किया, उसका फ्रूट्स का भी जो है वो गाँव में वेजिटेबल के रूप में, और उसका तेल निकाल के उसको घी भी बोलते हैं, वो देखने में भी घी जैसा हो जाता है, उसके भी बहुत उपयोग है. उस पक्ष पर आपने कोई बात नहीं रखा. धन्यवाद.
थैंक यू सर. तो जैसे आपने बताया कि महुआ सेंट्रल इंडिया में एक मेजर ट्री है, गुजरात, राजस्थान से लेके तो झारखंड, उड़ीसा, आंध्र प्रदेश, और अभी तक, बट इट्स अ वैल्यूएबल ट्री क्योंकि इनकम को सपोर्ट करता है, फूड को सपोर्ट करता है, फूड सिस्टम को, कल्चरल प्रैक्टिसेस का पार्ट है, और अदर भी उसके यूजेस हैं. इसलिए लोगों के लिए और खासकर ट्राइबल के लिए इसका बहुत सिग्निफिकेंस है. इसलिए अगर आप सीधी में या उधर बेल्ट में जाएंगे, अगर आपकी निगाह पड़ती है तो आप 10 पेड़ देखेंगे एग्रीकल्चर लैंड पे तो 8 महुआ रहेंगे. लेकिन जो आपने बात बोली कि पेड़ लग नहीं रहे हैं, पुराने पेड़ हैं, और हालांकि महुआ के साथ इतना फ़ायदा है कि जितना पुराना होगा उतना ज़्यादा आपको आउटपुट मिलेगा, क्योंकि उसकी कैनोपी जितनी ज़्यादा बढ़ेगी उतना ज़्यादा आपको फ्लावर मिलेगा, उतना ही ज़्यादा आपको सीड मिलेगा। लेकिन जो इशू है वो ये है कि और प्लांटेशन क्यों नहीं हो रहा है। उसका जो मेजर रीज़न है कि महुआ का पूरा जो मार्केट सिस्टम है इट इज़ डोमिनेटेड बाय पीटी ट्रेडर्स, और जो उसका यूज़ है वो है देसी लिकर। ठीक है, तो लोग ट्राइबल और गांव के जो गरीब लोग हैं वो उसकी दारू बना बना के पीते हैं। हमारे पास में अभी हम लोग क्या चाह रहे हैं कि क्या हम उसी दारू को और प्रमोट करें? नो। लेकिन उसकी इतनी वो सुपर फूड है महुआ, और हमारे ट्राइबल एरिया में, सेंट्रल इंडिया में वो ट्रेडिशनली फूड सिस्टम का हिस्सा रहा है। लेकिन जो पुरानी महिला हैं वो बनाती थी, अब नए जो एजुकेटेड लोग आए हैं उन्होंने उसको ख़त्म ही कर दिया। तो नए रूप में हम इसको कैसे ला सकते हैं, क्योंकि ये न्यूट्रिशनल सिक्योरिटी का एक बहुत बड़ा है। इसलिए हम ये कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि इसके जो वैरायटी ऑफ फूड्स पायलट करके और नेटवर्क ऑफ एंटरप्राइज अक्रॉस द सेंट्रल इंडिया, एंड हाउ वी कैन एक्चुअली ब्रिंग इट टू द मिड डे मील, और जहां प्रेग्नेंट महिलाओं को हेल्प दी जा रही है हॉस्पिटल्स में, वहां ये कैसे जा सकता है, इसको लेके ऑलरेडी हमने डिस्कशन शुरू किया। जहां तक प्लांटेशन की बात है, अभी फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट की नर्सरी में ही महुआ का आपको सैपलिंग मिलेगा, प्राइवेट नर्सरी में वो नहीं है, क्योंकि कम्युनिटी अभी भी इसमें ज़्यादा वैल्यू नहीं देखता। खासकर जो ट्राइबल है, जो दिन भर काम, जिसके पास कोई काम नहीं है उसके लिए महुआ है, और वो महिला है गांव की। इवन जनरल कम्युनिटी, मेरे यहाँ 10 पेड़ है तो मैं क्या करूँगा, एक गांव की गरीब महिला आएगी, मुझे बोलेगी मैं आपका बिन लूँ, इकट्ठा कर लूँ, 50-50 बेसिस पे वो शेयर कर लेते हैं, और ये किसी को बेच देगा घर पे आके, वो बेचारी अपना 1-1, 5-5 किलो बेचती रहती। दिस इज हाउ दे मैनेज देयर लाइवलीहुड। तो अगर हम इसकी वैल्यूज ऐड करेंगे महुआ में, तो मुझे लग रहा है कि इसका प्लांटेशन का जो मोमेंटम है, पर्टिकुलरली ऑन प्राइवेट लैंड, वो बढ़ेगा। मैं महुआ के ऊपर एक रिसर्च कर रहा था मंडला डिस्ट्रिक्ट में, तो मुझे एक किसान मिला जिसने कहा ही हैड होल्डिंग कैपेसिटी। उसने मुझे कहा, सर महुआ में आप पैसा डबल कर सकते हो अगर आप ऑफ सीजन में बेचो। तो बोले मैंने अपने घर में ट्रेडिशनल एक स्टोरेज सिस्टम बना रखा है, और पूरा महुआ मेरे घर का और आसपास का मैं इकट्ठा करके रखता हूँ, ऑफ सीजन में बेचता हूँ। जब मैं इस किसान के फार्म पे गया तो उसने कहा मैंने 135 पेड़ महुआ के लगाए। मैंने कहा इसका आपका इंसेंटिव क्या है? सर बोले जितना 1 एकड़ जमीन में धान लगाने से मिलता है उससे ज़्यादा महुआ कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकता है। पॉइंट इज आपके पास मार्केट इंटेलिजेंस है, सेकंड आप राइट मार्केट को एड्रेस कर रहे हो, आपके पास होल्डिंग कैपेसिटी है ताकि आप कब अपना प्रोड्यूस बेचें। तो लोगों को अगर इंक्रीमेंटल इनकम मिलती है तो महुआ प्लांटेशन फिर से बढ़ेगा। अभी मैं इसी से जुड़ा हुआ एक एग्जांपल और दे रहा हूँ। हम लोग कटहल पे काम कर रहे हैं, सीधी का कटहल ट्रेडिशनल है। हम दूसरी एक जगह रत्नागिरी डिस्ट्रिक्ट में काम कर रहे हैं जहाँ पे हमारा एक प्रोड्यूसर कंपनी, उसका नाम ही है जैक फ्रूट किंग, और उसका मैंडेट ये है कि जैक फ्रूट को हम इंडिया में मेन स्ट्रीम फूड बनाएंगे। 86 वेराइटी उन्होंने जैक फ्रूट्स की डेवलप की, एफपीओ ने। ओके, जब हमने सीधी के लोगों का, देखिए सीधी में कटहल 5 रुपये किलो बिकता है, भोपाल में 40 रुपये किलो बिकता है। जब सीधी का कटहल भोपाल में गया तो गांव के लोगों को 25 रुपया मिलना शुरू हो गया 5 की जगह। हमने कहा हमारा देखिए इतनी वैरायटी होती है कटहल की, आपके यहाँ जो है ना ये देसी है तो अपनी जगह है, पर वो वैरायटी ऐसी है जिसकी प्रोडक्टिविटी डबल है और 3 साल में फ्रूटिंग शुरू होती है। हमने 50 पौधे वहां से मंगवाए 10 वेराइटीज के, पर प्लांट 300 वी चार्ज्ड फ्रॉम कम्युनिटी, और लोगों ने हैप्पीली, जबकि फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट वही पौधा 14 रुपए में देता है और लोगों ने 300 रुपए में एक पौधा खरीदा। पॉइंट ये है व्हाट वैल्यू यू आर ऑफरिंग टू द कम्युनिटी। इन्वेस्टमेंट विल ऑटोमेटिकली कम फ्रॉम कम्युनिटी। तो जो 14 रुपए का नहीं खरीदता है वो 300 रुपए का कैसे खरीद सकता? कल हमारा डिस्कशन हो रहा था, अभी हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं कार्बन क्रेडिट और बहुत सारा लैंडस्केप रिस्टोरेशन। सी कम्युनिटी को अगर आप पौधा विथ वैल्यू आप देंगे ना, तो आपको फ्री पौधा देने की जरूरत ही नहीं। अगर वो 300 रुपया दे के एक पौधा ले रहा है तो आप समझ लीजिए ये पौधा मर सकता है क्या? नहीं मर सकता। एक्चुअली थोड़ा सा हमें ये देखना पड़ेगा कि किसान कैसे इंसेंटिवाइज हो सकता है। एक और चीज मैं ऐड करना चाह रहा हूं, देखिए किसान के लिए पेड़ का कोई महत्व नहीं है। आज आई माई सेल्फ इज ए फार्मर, मेरे घर में सिर्फ इसलिए झगड़ा होता है कि मेरे घर वाले पेड़ ना काटे, और जब भी मैं जाता हूं कुछ पेड़ खत्म कर देते हैं। बोले इसका क्या उपयोग? हमारी दूसरी फसल नहीं होने दे रहा है पेड़। पेड़ सिर्फ वही किसान के खेत में बचा है जो किसान को कुछ देता है। बाकी किसान के लिए वैल्यू है सॉइल एंड वाटर की, बिकॉज दे कंट्रीब्यूट फॉर एग्रीकल्चर प्रोडक्शन एंड एग्रीकल्चर कंट्रीब्यूट फॉर देयर लाइवलीहुड सिक्योरिटी। इट्स नॉट ट्री। तो अगर आपका ट्री जमीन पे रहेगा तो ट्री हैज टू कंट्रीब्यूट एंड दैट कंट्रीब्यूशन शुड बी टेंजिबल, क्योंकि फार्मर इनटेंजिबल बेनिफिट नहीं, इकोसिस्टम सर्विसेज हम बात समझते हैं। किसान को क्या मतलब इकोसिस्टम सर्विसेज से? वो तो ये समझ रहा है मुझे क्या मिला इससे, रिटर्न क्या मिला। तो हमें देखना पड़ेगा कि राइट स्पीसीज क्या हो सकती है, हम मार्केट से कैसे कनेक्ट करें ताकि लोगों को इंक्रीमेंटल इनकम मिले, एंड देन यू कैन कंपेयर कि ओके 1 एकड़ में धान लगाया, आपकी तो लैंड की क्वालिटी भी ठीक नहीं है, तो आप तो 3.5 क्विंटल तो हुआ है, लेकिन एक आप कटहल से कितना कमा रहे हो, तो विच इज बेटर, कटहल और धान? आपको सारा इकोनॉमिक्स वो इंटेलिजेंस वहां डेवलप करना पड़ेगा, एंड दैट विल लीड अ चेंज प्रोसेस, ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन इन द रूरल। तो हमारा जो एक्सपीरियंस है वो तो यही है।
I think thank you for that. And for our panel, at least, while we've been talking business models and we've been talking restoration positive business models, it is a big question. And I think this forum over yesterday and today will continue to explore that trees hold value. How can the farmers who are either custodians of those trees either benefit from income from the trees or are rewarded as custodians of the trees, because there has to be some value in that also. And I think that's the message for today. I see, unfortunately, we're over time. I'm sure there are many questions, but luckily you still have the whole day and breaks to take them up. And I really do encourage you to approach our panel speakers to take up those questions, because this has been a very enjoyable panel for me personally. I hope for you as well. And let's continue the discussion. Thank you so much. Divya, back to you.
No, indeed, that was a very good panel, very exciting start to the day. Thank you so much to everyone, to our panelists, to our moderator, to the audience, for your kind attention, for your questions. Any more questions, please feel free to, like Jasmeer said, reach out to our panelists and speak to them during the break and the rest of the day. So clearly the discussion has shown that restoration positive enterprises are creating strong livelihoods and stronger landscapes in various contexts. And with the right markets, R&D, technology, financing structures, supply chain interventions, partnerships with communities, investors, governments, CBUs, and convergence of resources, these can go much further.